CNN commented on the video that was released by the Charlotte Mecklenburg Police Department, and basically they haven't released the entire video. And I know I keep harping about this, but based on what I just heard, there are a lot of holes in the statements that the Charlotte Mecklenburg Police Department has stated. And I'm going to point them out to you during this interview.
Today's protest comes just a day after Charlotte police released 2 videos showing their deadly encounter with Keith Lamont Scott. We want to warn you that some of these images are very disturbing, and one of the videos is from an officer's body camera as he arrives at the scene, and for a moment you can see Scott in the blue pants, and when he comes back into the frame, he is then on the ground. He has a blue shirt, rather. The other video is from a different perspective of a police car dash camera. And you can see Scott getting out of the car, starting to walk backwards before he was shot. Police say there are several other videos, but those are the most relevant, according to police. I want to talk more about this with retired Los Angeles.
Now, while we're at it, I honestly don't think that black cop shot that guy. I think they made that up. I think it was the white cop that you saw coming around that was in the dark colors or blue that actually shot him. But I doubt that we're going to get an examination of all the weapons to find out which one was which, and if they haven't already switched weapons and made some adjustments. That's just conspiracy theorist me, and that may not necessarily hold water. But here's the conversation between a retired Los Angeles police officer and another retired police officer from a different jurisdiction.
Los Angeles Police Sergeant Cheryl Dorsey and CNN legal analyst, criminal defense attorney, and former police officer Philip Holloway. Good to see both of you. So, Cheryl, to you first. How does the release of these 2 videos, these images, fill in blanks for you, or perhaps leave gaping holes for you?
Well, it just really explains what the police chief had prepared us for, and that's the video is not conclusive with regards to what the officer's statements are. I don't see any furtive movements by Mr. Scott prior to them firing their weapons, and I don't see any criminal activity that was occurring based on the statement that was released yesterday that was so exigent that these officers should have left a surveillance location to drive some distance away, suit up, put on vests that say they're the police, and then come back to engage Mr. Scott. This thing could have been handled so differently. I think it would have been better had they just called a black and white, maintained their position of surveillance and cover, and allow another unit to deal with Mr. Scott. But this thing, as he's walking backwards, I don't see his hands raised. I see no furtive movement. He takes 3 steps and then he drops. It's inappropriate.
The police version of events is that he was seen in the vehicle, he was rolling marijuana blunt, and that he may have been brandishing a weapon, and that's what inspired these officers who were working undercover on another case, what inspired them to get out of their vehicles and pursue him in this manner. So, Philip, is all that justifiable in your view, based on what you saw in the videotape?
Well, let me first start by saying our sincere condolences to the Scott family, because obviously they've suffered a tragic loss. Now, that said, and as the guest has said is correct, we did not see any actual furtive movements in a traditional sense. However, the Supreme Court of the United States told us back in 1989 that in all police use of force situations, they are to be viewed from a perspective of objective reasonableness. In other words, put yourself in the position of the officer who is on the scene. Now, these videos don't do that. Certainly the dash cam video doesn't do that. While he's not seen raising what may be a gun in his hand, he might have been considered by the officer behind the pickup truck to be circling around behind the truck. And
now that's bullshit, because if you noticed in the video, as he got out of the car, he looked over to his right and he saw the officer that was pointing a gun at him, okay? So why would he circle back around that vehicle to get behind it when there was a person with a gun pointing it at him. Go back, rewind it, and look for yourself. That's exactly what happened. So what he just said is not accurate.
Let's face it, police officers do not have to wait until someone starts shooting at them before they can take action to save their own life if they truly perceive that their life is in danger.
Now, my question is, why did they force him out of the car? Okay, number one, rolling a joint is a ticketable offense, and they were supposedly there to serve an arrest warrant, which is a much greater priority. So they're going to stop what they're doing in order to go chase somebody down because they're rolling a joint. That's number one. Number two, since North Carolina is an open state law, having a gun in your car or on your person is not illegal. So now there are some further issues which we're going to get to in a moment.
Cheryl, police say that he was brandishing a weapon. We end up seeing still images of a weapon and a holster, but not on the body of Mr. Scott. How troublesome is that?
Well, listen, the Supreme Court has also told us that a black man does not have any right that a white man must respect. And so the fact that they say he's brandishing a weapon in an open carry state, and the fact that the officers are now saying that they observed him roll a joint is problematic for me, because I don't smoke marijuana and I don't roll joints, but I do know that all that activity happens in your lap. So I'm not sure how these officers were able, from their position seated in their car, to see Mr. Scott rolling a joint and then conclude that that's activity, criminal activity occurring that's so egregious and outrageous that they need to leave their post to then deal with that. It doesn't jive, Fred.
Exactly. How the hell did they see him rolling a joint? You don't sit there and roll a joint with your hands up in the air, attempting to roll it in your face. You roll a joint in your lap, okay? And then when you get done with it, okay, you may lick it. So that it takes all of how long? A second. So in 1 second, they potentially saw this dude sealing a joint. That's a bunch of bullshit. They're going to have to, in my mind, recreate the exact scenario where they first observed this man rolling a joint. And to me, it looked like the windows on that vehicle were tinted. So now I really want to see how this guy, these officers were able to see him rolling a joint and brandishing a weapon. Because if those windows were tinted in that vehicle, they are absolute liars. You saw the angle and how dark it was around that vehicle. That vehicle looked like it was parked under a bunch of trees and stuff. So it was, you didn't have full light shining through that vehicle regardless. So the story that they're trying to spin is not holding water.
Drika?
Well, if I can just respond to that, Frederica.
Why wouldn't police release it? But Phil, why wouldn't police release video that substantiates a threat? Because based on what all of us are able to see, I'm not a police officer either, nor am I an attorney, but it's difficult to see where he looks like he is exhibiting threatening behavior based on the videotape that was released.
Well, that's an easy one, because it's threatening behavior when you're told multiple times over 30 or 40 seconds to drop a gun, and rather than dropping the gun, you get out of your vehicle.
No, that's not threatening behavior, okay? That is not threatening behavior. You are not complying, okay? That is behavior that might piss somebody off, but it's not threatening behavior. They should have never forced that guy out of his car. They had no legal reason to do so.
And you start maneuvering yourself into a different position.
That's at the root of this argument, though, and this is why tensions are the way they are. In the video, you do not see a weapon on this person, Mr. Scott, and that's what I mean. Why would police not reveal or show to substantiate the claim that he was brandishing a weapon, that there was a threat? Why would that video that was released not show that?
Well, the
Because
chief has told us that those
Frederica, they released the
videos
video
are the
that
best
they
that they
had.
have.
Oh, Philip first.
Yeah, they've told us that those are the best that they have, and it's true. The videos do not. You can't clearly see what, if anything, is in his hand. It looks like there's something there. The police have said it's a gun, but we need to wait until the entire investigation is complete before we draw any firm conclusions. We can't jump to this emotional knee-jerk narrative that this was someone simply reading a book, because that has been, I think, mostly discredited at this point, not before it caused riots and the loss of life, but we have to wait until the entire investigation is.
Okay, and it's like if there was a book in there that he was reading, when the police did their crime scene search, and I'm talking about the initial officers, that book couldn't have disappeared magically, like the gun appeared magically.
Complete, to see what other witnesses have said that they saw, to see what the other officers have put in their report, see what other videos may or may not show. We have only seen a small piece of this, Frederica. We need to wait for it all.
Cheryl?
And so, Frederica, what we're going to find from the other officers' statements is that it's going to be very similar to what the officer who discharged his weapon is going to articulate, and that is that they were in fear, there was a threat. But we understand, Frederica, that officers will create and manufacture probable cause, reasonable suspicion, a reason to use lethal force when one does not exist. We have now been required to rely on the officer's statements to pair up, match up with the video, much like in the case of Walter Scott. Had we not had that video recording, we would have had to take the word of Michael Schlager that Walter Scott had grabbed his taser and was about to shoot him with it. But for the video, in the case of Sam DuBose, we would have had to take the word of Ray Tenzing that he was being run over allegedly by Sam DuBose, and that's why he fired his weapon. And so now we're going to have to take the word of these officers that somehow Mr. Scott made a furtive movement, which we don't see. He did something threatening, which we don't see. We don't see him raising his hands, and it's going to be based on their statements and their statements alone, because great deference is given to what police officers say.
And that much I agree with. Great deference is given to what police officers say.
Yeah, and that's the problem, okay? Especially with black people, because knowing the history of the creation of police and the fact that police were giving great deference in capturing runaway slaves, that creates a major issue for me, okay? And that's just historical.